morning. He's an entrepreneur, like all of you here. Mr. Patrick Kagenda, who is going to take us through this session, is a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He is a married man. He's a father of 4. He is a Christian. He is a computer scientist. He set up Data Care Uganda, an IT service provider, in 1994. So he's been in business for over 20 years, and we want to congratulate you for defying that curve that says most businesses die in the first, don't celebrate the first birthday. You have passed the 10th, and the 20th, and so congratulations. And I'm sure you have a lot of tips and a lot of knowledge to share with members here. And so Mr. Patrick Agenda also acts as the Systems Director at Data Care Uganda Limited. He's the chairman of Alliance for Trade in Information Systems and Services. Patrick holds a Bachelor's of Science in Physics and Mathematics with a Master's in Computer Science, all from Makerere University. And so, members, allow me to welcome Patrick. Patrick, please go ahead and share with us those insights on how to ensure we read all the dotted lines and we understand international contracts, the intricacies involved, and how to prepare, because it's my belief that all of us in business want to grow beyond just the initial market that you entered into when you started. We should have the ambition to not just do business locally, but to be able to cross borders. And so Patrick is going to share with us those insights. But as you share those, please continue, members, continue to post in the chat room who you are, your contacts, and what you do. And then after Patrick, we shall have then questions. And again, please post your questions in the chat room. As he continues to present, when anything pops up, just type in your questions. I'll be able to pick them, and then I will allow Patrick to respond to the questions after his presentation. Over to you, Patrick. You have the floor.
Wow, thank you very much, Rosemary, for this opportunity for me to share my story with the Data Care, from Data Care, but also to encourage the members and also run through what I would call the practical checklist. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's not that where I'm going to say these are the top 7, top 14, 20, top 21. I don't know what it is with the number 7 or the factor of 7 for the tips, but these are basically things that we've been doing since 2006. Just a little correction on Mary. I started as a computer scientist back in 1994 as an individual, then went into various organizations. But Data Care itself started in 2006. So I'll talk briefly about Data Care, then talk about these international contracts and issues to look out for. And then we'll have that conversation at the end in terms of question and answers, believing and trusting that I'll be able to address and meet your expectations. So Data Care is, like Mary said, is a software development company. We basically do this. We come to organizations, hear your story, and then we work together to basically digitalize it. We pride in ourselves to say that whatever we do is purely customized. You tell us what you want, and then we meet together to provide you a solution that can automate your processes. For us to do business beyond Uganda, but also to serve the Ugandan market well, we had to choose international standards. So we are ISO certified in terms of quality management systems, in terms of security information systems management, information security management systems. So those are the ISO certifications that we subscribe to. We use an approach we call an agile approach. Basically, we work together to, even if the project is so huge, we break it into manageable, deliverable pieces that we can work and deliver to you, functional systems. It might be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or even months. So, and we also pride to be a hub of youth mentorship in Uganda. We've worked with various organizations like USAID, the World Bank, FAO and both local and international agencies. Now, it could happen that some of the people online are part of our clients, and maybe your logo hasn't appeared there. Please do forgive me. It is a bit of a limited space, but depending on who we're presenting to, we normally rearrange these slides. We have solutions that we've developed. We have our anchor project, which we call Promise. And Promise is basically for project and program management information system. It's under the category of what we call enterprise resource planning systems. These are systems that we install in organizations and they run the entire process. So the promise that we have is it covers all about human resource finance management, inventory management, grants management, monitoring and evaluation, and even finance. So it really covers all the operations. So far, we've rolled it in about in 11 countries. I think we're getting our 12th very soon. And this year, just for purposes of target, we are looking at about 2 clients in Zambia, another one in Syria and Jordan. So we are able to basically scope as we'll be having a conversation on that. Now, when I was requested to share this story, and we're saying this is securing global deals, and then we say the practical checklist of international contracts. I thought we would basically look at how do we get this business. We get our businesses from public bids. It could be newspapers, it could be online platform or agency platforms, and even referrals. Rosemary was encouraging us to share our contacts here, such that we're able to get to know what we do and how we can work together. So referrals are very good opportunities for us to get business. So for us to do the export or get the global markets, we are always encouraged to develop what we call an export marketing plan. You agree which countries you're going to, or what countries you are targeting, what are you going to supply there, what barriers are there as you enter that market, what do you need to consider, and such that you are able to have that plan and then be able to execute it. So we have opportunity as we got an opportunity as Data Care, worked with International Trade Center in Geneva, and they came to Uganda. They identified some companies and under project the Netherlands Trust Fund 4 and 5, and we gathered and they helped us to develop export marketing plans, and then we're able to even tap in resources by Enterprise Uganda here to make sure that these plans are able to be executed. And then when we're responding to these bids or requests for proposals, or you've attended exhibitions or these webinars, we're able to identify what is it that is required for you to enter a given market. You can actually turn this around and say, look, if somebody wants to do business in Uganda, what should they know about Uganda? Then that way you should also ask ourselves, what do we need to know about the other countries that we're basically going to offer our services. So some of these barriers or some of these requirements are country specific, but very clearly, most of them are client specific requirements. If you look at our banner down there, when I mentioned that Data Care is ISO 9001 certified, I mean, there are markets that understand those, including Uganda. Most of the European countries understand the ISO systems. The Americans have other systems that they put at the top, but also when they see the ISO 9000, they say, wow, this is an organization that has purposed to go into quality management systems. So if they are looking for systems that are secure, then they look at companies which have ISO 27001. So all this is basically part of preparation. So this morning I woke up basically to check that my slides are still intact, and I find an email popping up saying, Patrick, yes, you subscribe to the United Nations Global Marketplace, UNGM, and here is an opportunity for you. So every morning they send opportunities all over where the UN is working, and we're able to receive these alerts. So if we're looking for a checklist, basically we're saying, one, let's be able to subscribe to some of these platforms such that these opportunities literally find you in your house. So as we prepare for international deals, we're talking about businesses. So here we need to understand the people. We'll be talking about the language we're speaking. We're talking about the tools they are using. We look at the processes, such that tool is able to stand even when the legs are a bit not proportional. So if I could talk about our preparation, let's ensure, ladies and gentlemen, that we adopt international quality standards. Like I told you, Data Care itself decided to choose on the quality management system. There are other systems, depending on your other systems you can install. Since we're in software, and generally we thought we'd go for ISO 9001, which is a quality management system. But then in your industry, also look for those international standards, which are industry specific, and then get those certifications so that people do not ask you a lot of can I call it background information, because they know that by the time you have these certifications, then you're qualified, or you're at least promising a quality of what you'll be delivering. So the other part is basically communication protocols. How do we communicate? Which words do we use? And shall we send emails? Shall we? I don't know whether we still send letters by post, but all kind of protocols have to be observed. And basic things we talk about. I mean, I was looking at this date and say, when you look at this date, we say, what date is this? Is this 10th November, 10th April, or October 4th? Right? So we basically, you need to know your client and what are you telling them, right? So you need to understand, when I'm dealing with my Americans, I write my dates in a way that, is the American format. If I'm dealing with the UK guys, I know how to write it. If we are writing in Uganda, there is no Ugandan way, so we inherited our friends. So you write it in the UK format. So when I say 10th April, it is perfectly clear. I mean, we struggle with spell checkers at times, and you have to keep changing. Who am I writing to? Are we summarizing with an S? Are we summarizing with a Z? Somebody actually about 2 years was teasing us about some meeting, and he said, no, Patrick, I'm not around. I'm going for an engagement. And I was with a colleague from UK, and said, this guy immediately said, oh, congratulations. He said, no, I'm actually going for a meeting. So when do we talk about a meeting? When do we talk about an engagement? Who are you talking to, and how are you basically communicating? So ladies and gentlemen, we have to do our homework. We have to prepare such that we're able to address the international market. The other component is basically to study the destination country laws and regulations. I mean, laws keep changing. They keep putting on all these kind of regulations. If you're going in a market, please take time, study the conditions in that country, study their laws, get legal advice, go to their websites, contact the people who are already in there, and be able to handle that. The other part that we normally underrate, yet very powerful, because you won't go and say, this is how you do business, this is how Uganda, or this is how Kenya does business culture in terms of how they follow their culture. But it's an area that we really have to look up to. So look at I mean, I remember one time I was going to sign a contract with one of the universities here. I was amazed. I mean, one of the directors called me and said, yeah, Patrick, I know IT guys at times, and some of you people these days, you don't put on ties. You're coming to meet my chancellor. Please come dressed up in a tie and a suit, such that we sign this contract. That is already a culture. They've agreed on those kind of standards. I mean, I was attending a B2B sometime back, and this Asian friend of mine came to my stall, and when he looked at me, he said, "So Patrick, the team from Uganda is here. Are you a government official?" I said, "No." I asked him why. I mean, the way you're dressed up, you look like a government official. And for him, he was an IT guy, and I was doing IT here. So I had to tell him, you know what? Where we are here, these guys who had invited us, I was actually in Geneva. They had told us, man, guys, when you go there, we have to be dressed up in that mode. So even when we're doing our B2Bs, we have to be trained. When you're doing these contracts, when you're executing these contracts, whether it's hot or cold, the attire also matters. I mean, recently, like I popped up, we have business in Sudan and Iraq, and these guys, we sent a team, but our ladies were alerted that, guys, when you go there, you have to cover your head, you have to dress up with them. I mean, you could see the gentlemen are dressed up freely, but the ladies had a way of dressing up. So what am I talking about? Let's prepare and have we establish the clear communication channels. We use clear language, and then above all, be sensitive to time zones and holidays. I mean, we are here. It's a great morning, but we could be joined by people who this is afternoon. Others are still asleep, and so we need to know what time zones. If you're able to when you're making the appointments, please do consult these guys if such that the time zones are okay. I had a case again with my team in Iraq, and my staff were being called on Sunday, and they were being called out of church, and my team was saying, "But Patrick, our contract is Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, and we hadn't worked on our contracts to make sure that as we get these contracts in different time zones, in different working days." So we had to have conversations with our team. We had to be, like I said, we had to be agile to make sure that we're able to address all those issues. Now, as you know, as we all do, we have plans, right? A friend of mine just shared this recently when I told them that I'm going to have this conversation with you, and said, we plan. And I mean, just imagine you're taking a ride, and you're from point A, your business is in December, and you're looking at January up to the next December, and it looks like a straight line. But all of us know what happens, right? There will be hills, there will be valleys, there will be floods and heavy rains and all that kind of stuff. And in all this, what we can say is let's prepare. Now, when we're hitting international contracts, then we are basically saying we need to do the pre-contract checklist. We need to check these contracts. Please read and read and read and read these contracts. Right? Then when you reach the point of contract negotiations, please also ensure that you're negotiating well, everything is clear, and you're able to check. And then when you reach the point of contract management and execution, also look at those clauses to ensure that the work, what you promise is what you deliver, and what is actually stated in the contract. So I will basically look at those 3 areas, and then we'll have a conversation. I will expose just headlines of some of the contracts we've been doing, but not going into detail. When you look at this, just a simple extract. We've just won work with COMESA, and we started on 10th February. So you look at the contract, it's clear. It's telling you who is the client. It is between data care and where it will be managed, and then the great lawyers start their interesting terms of their whereas, right? So contract checklist, look at the scope, right? And I know some people at times run straight and look at the money and all this, but please look at that work. Look at the scope of work. Are you able to deliver this? right? And who are the people going to be involved in this? Identify your stakeholders, right? And make sure all the local laws and regulations are very, very clear to you. And then once those are set, let's agree on how to communicate. I know at times people will quick here to call. I mean, Ugandans, we love talking. So I could call and call this guy, say, hi, this is, I'll be coming next week. Is that okay? And I've done these things, ladies and gentlemen. I remember traveling to one country and we had agreed, they had sent me emails and all that. I reach at the airport and these guys are saying, but yes, you have the ticket, you have this, but where is, yes, you don't require a visa, but where is your invitation letter? I said, my God, I actually didn't get an invitation letter. So I had to pull out my laptop. I showed these guys my emails and all that. But now I know what to do, and I'm telling you, please make sure they write on a headed letter inviting you, who you are, your passport, and all those, such that you are able to handle. In other words, you'll have established a communication protocol. When do you meet? How do you write? And all these conversations. I'm talking to this team here. I can't make an assumption that I can use the Ugandan slogans because this is a global market, right? So also determine your payment terms. I went to one country and this guy told me, you know what, we will pay you, but it's a bit hard here to get dollars. So when you come, we will give you cash. But you know what? As we give you this cash at the airport, there is a challenge. The ceiling for you to take the money is is 5,000. Like, wow, but I'm going to get more than this. You say, yeah, you must find a way how to take this money. And so if the terms of payment are not well defined, even to say, is this cash, is this by electronic transfer and all those kind of things. And then you bring these, you go to some of these countries and you find that also there are challenges in terms of which maybe like visa cards have issues and all that. So it's important for you to do the pre-contract checklist. I just mentioned a few of these. Look at your scope, identify your stakeholders, who does what, understand the whole legal environment. Please involve our lawyers here who understand the international trade, but also go to get contacts in those countries that you intend to export to, understand how the work is done and the legal framework, and then we are able to handle that. Now, we can add on this checklist, but those are just the 5 things that I thought you would do in terms of the pre-contract stage. Now, at the contract negotiation, there are items in those contracts. I've made this a bit light. You look at those articles. I mean, here somebody's talking about the development methodology. How shall we deliver this solution? What shall we deliver? What are the deliverables? When do we start and when do we end and on which milestones, right? So look at the contract terms and conditions. Please, these days, many people write contracts, but instead of putting all the details, they put on links, right? So you go to a link, and then you're able to follow through and read those contracts. When you reach that link, I kindly request take its pictures or take the images and store the link, because these links, the details normally change, right? And when they change, they might affect your ongoing contracts because you don't have a kind of a fallback position. So when you go there, get the information as much as you can, bring it in as part of your physical contract, such that you're able, when I say physical, I actually even include the soft copy, have a record of what those sites were talking about. And then when you look at the scope, like I said, duration, and most importantly, termination clauses. You know, when we get big contracts, I mean, even the termination clauses, you say, but you guys, you have little faith. Who told you this contract is going to be terminated? We even don't read those clauses. But most of you know what has just happened in the US, and time allowing, I should be able to share share the story on that, right? Then pricing and payment structure, like I said, still under the negotiations. You looked at it in the pre, but please come back and look at this. I'll share with you a short story. we have a job in Zimbabwe, and we put in a quotation for our travels. Now they confirm, actually in Malawi, not Zimbabwe, in Malawi, and they confirm the travel. 4 days to the travel to the event day. And when we go to check our air tickets, the budget we had was about $700. By the time we went to pick the tickets, this was 1,200. The next hour 1,400, and we're like, how do we negotiate? How did we put this figure in our structure, right? We should have told the client, please, you buy the tickets. But also the client is also defending themselves. So let's look at those details and make sure that also the deliverables and the timelines and all this are very clear and very specific. Have somebody in your team to review these contracts, and even if they are not lawyers or what, but let somebody look at it carefully. These days we're talking about intellectual property protection. Look at the work when you deliver this solution, when you offer your services, depending on which industry. Have you considered the intellectual property? When you deliver it, whose is it, right? So we should be able to look at those and pull them out. If they're not clear, let's address them, but also understand under which if there's a conflict, how will the disputes be resolved, right? The whole dispute resolution mechanism, it has to be stated in those contracts. Now, at times when you're a small company and you're dealing with big organizations, they even throw you a contract and say, no, that is our template. It's like you have no room for negotiations. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to encourage you. When you take your stand, those guys are able to listen to you. They're able to make changes, and those adjustments can be made because you have actually highlighted them. So most of the tricky ones, which I really find tricky, are these where they give you a bid, you put in a proposal, but then the final result is just an LPO and just in reference to the documents that you shared. And so the purchase order is a small summary. I just displayed one we got some time back, and you find some of these details are not here. Please take time and make sure that in the execution, especially what we call the inception reports, make sure that all assumptions, all things that are not clear are well stated, because when you bring in your inception report and they sign it off, they are basically saying that this is part now of the bigger contract. So whatever is ambiguous or whatever you feel needs clarity at this point, that's an opportunity for you to basically look at it and be able to correct it. So when we're doing the whole monitoring the contract performance, look at your timelines, please, right? Do all you can. Once you've agreed on the whole communication issue, look at the progress of the contract, look at the issues, look at the corrective action. If people are not attending meeting, if people are taking 2-3 weeks to reply to a contract, alert your project manager and tell them, look, by you taking 2 weeks, maybe you might have now to extend my end date by this kind of period. That is if extending actually favors you. Remember, at times you extend your contract and you're extending your cash flow. So we need also to manage changes and variations, especially the work we do in software development, but even in many other consultancies. The scope creep. I mean, people, once they see something, say, wow, so you mean you can do this? Please also add this. So we should be able to manage the scope and say, look, these are good to have, but kindly can we finish this and then be able to go to the next. Look at the timelines, look at the budget. But above all, we also need to maintain our records. I tell my team, I say, you know what, yes, that client has called you. Could you kindly go on your laptop, type and say, based on our phone conversation, and at times my friends would say, today is not, today is today. So you say, based on our phone conversation, you quote the date and say 17th, we talked about this and we've agreed. Did I hear you say confirming this? And let them confirm. These are the records that with time will come to, and they will rescue your contract. People will honor that, you know what, this is what we talked about. Like I said, as we execute these contracts, we also need to look at the whole renewal, right? You look at the contract and say, look, this is April. We are ending in June, but can we now look at how this contract can be extended, or even look at those key clauses on how this contract can be terminated? I've been through a lot from the period the stop work orders from the US came on. We had hit very interesting contracts. Some were ending in May 2026. Others had just onboarded, ending in 2030. And 3 contracts were just out of the door. Now, remember, we have these contracts and we have hired team members, right? We have promised our team, look, guys, I have work up 2030, so just join, I sign. And in our contracts, I'm not putting dependencies to say, look, this contract that I've given you depends on the contract that somebody else has given me. I'm saying, no, forget about that. I mean, I've been working with USAID since 2007 to date. So I've never seen what happened, right? But now we are wiser. So we are going back on the table and say, look, how can we make sure that even these, and by the way, what I did mention is reading these contracts again, you could find actually a very good clause. Hey, we are giving you this contract depending on the availability of funds from the US government. And ladies and gentlemen, that clause, maybe we were so excited. You just read over, say, I mean, these guys will always have the money. But here we are, right? So I just extracted some of this. So you look at what I was saying here. This is one of them, right? Don't mind about reading the whole detail. It's basically a clause about conflict of interest, right? How do we handle if the person who is supervising me, even if it's in Zimbabwe, is my in-law, right? How do you handle that, right? And then you look at the whole intellectual property. Now we're in that, and I've been having hot conversations with my friends. The guys, I get a contract from an American company. That American company was hired by USAID. Now, when what happens when the USAID is in a different state? What do we do? Where do we go to? And then the intellectual property, they are telling me that all the property that has been produced belongs to USAID. So how do you handle that? I'm excited, and all these are areas that we need to basically look at. I mean, key personnel, right? I mean, in this kind of a contract, I was their key personnel, right? But what happens if I'm not able to deliver, right? I can frankly tell you that on this forum, I invited a person who is literally my backup. In case where I am, or if I wasn't able to come in, this guy would call and say, guys, based on this, Kagenda was supposed to be here. He's not here. I'll give you this presentation. And he has a copy of this presentation. So when we're dealing with these international markets, basically not international markets, let me clear it. For every contract, every commitment we're making, let's make sure we deliver. If you can deliver, have a fallback position on your team for somebody who will be able to take on in case you're not available for that. Now, like Mary was saying, we're seated in there. We had got contracts with big people, and then all of a sudden you receive, you know what? As a result, all the work has been stopped. Stop even serving. Refrain from incurring any cost. Provide notice. Stop working. But I am in the middle of the execution of a contract. I mean, I declared to Rosemary that I'm currently in Fort Portal. I was traveling and I was on that road. I wish I can throw some comments to the engineers, and you're like, okay, God, what happened? the road construction stopped in the middle. If at all if a middle exists, stopped, right? And material was dumped in there. There's a lot of dust, there are neighbors and the rest, but what happens? How do we manage those international? But contracts get terminated. I'm just displaying. This was one of them, and I have 3 of these. I just displayed 2. And these guys come and say, you know what, stop this work. Yet I have installed a system, maybe at a government ministry. They are testing it. I'm expecting test results in 3 weeks, and they stop. Now, the problem is you, the local, they know you, right? And they're calling and saying, you're not being responsive. How can you do this? Please come and just finish. But I require resources to be able to finish this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I would share this to this level, and then spare significant time for us to have this conversation, and then be able to have the conversation. Over to you, Mary. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Patrick. This has been extremely useful and extremely eye-opening. I think there are so many takeaways, and I just want what quickly captured that your company, charity begins at home, that here you are, a Ugandan company, Data Care, since 2006, but you purposed to have an export orientation. And so you went ahead and you knew the key success factors for your business. To be able to go international, you must make sure that you abide or you adopt international quality standards. So I really appreciate that you are ISO certified. You have 2 ISO certifications. And I think that is a key message for all of us. What is your vision? Where are you taking this business? Because if you have an outward looking vision or orientation, issues of certification speak for themselves. Because as you said, that once you have the ISO certification, once you're compliant to the international standards, there are less questions that are asked by those international companies that are actually procuring your services, because they know you have gone through a rigorous process of quality assurance, and therefore they don't have to ask certain questions. So that is, for me, such a big takeaway here. And then you've shared those steps, the steps on how to get this international business. How do you access business? I like that you've shared about subscribing to different groups or platforms that can potentially give you business. And you shared your own business, one that you got this morning, and then checking every day. I also like that you talked about referrals. Referrals are so important, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen, on this forum, put your details there, because you don't know. Most of these contracts, when a company gets they subcontract and subcontract. So somebody can actually reach out to you as an individual to be part of a team that will bid for a bigger contract that you may not, in your own right or capacity, be able to get. I like what you say about developing an export marketing plan. That's amazing. That plan then enables you to understand where you're going, that market, to understand the people, the language, the culture, and how they behave and their laws. So these are really very useful. And then you tickled me with the communication. We are so informal these days with email and WhatsApp. People are so informal in communication. So we need to understand the communication protocols of the different the markets, and ensure that we are communicating, that we are actually communicating. So that was really very important. Thank you also for sharing the checklist. So we have the pre-contract checklist, and I think you shared very well. And what stands out there is asking key questions before. And I think many of us fail there. We are so excited about the contract, the potential of the contract coming through, and we miss certain things. So I like that you've broken it into 3 parts. Pre-contract checklist, before you get the contract, understand, and those you share those points. Then how contract negotiation, being able to look at the details, the payments, the pricing, and intellectual property, the details in reading between the lines. And I like that you say it may be useful to have a lawyer, get some legal eye to come, and a legal opinion to help you understand, and even during the negotiation of your contract. And then, of course, you shared greatly on contract execution and your own experience recently with that work stop order issued by Donald Trump, and what that meant And I like what you said that having a fallback position. Having a fallback position. Each time you're going to execute, make sure there's a plan B. That even for this assignment today, you had a plan B, just in case technology let you down, there's somebody who can continue. I think that is very, very important. And those are such useful lessons you have shared. And then, of course, the question that you throw to everybody, how do you manage termination of contract in the middle of execution? Wonderful, wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's now have your questions. Questions, comments. There's a hand up from Alan Mitanda. Alan, please unmute and ask your question. I'll take 3 or 4 live questions, and the rest we can take them into the chat room.
Yes, thank you, Rosemary. Thank you for the chance. My question is, first of all, I work for a company called Global West Technologies, LLC. We are an American small business, but operating in sub-Saharan Africa. We have been dealing in bandwidth and international contracts with the American Embassy and UNGM. We started UNGM contracts last year, applying, but so far we have applied for over 10 contracts since October last year. But my question to Patrick is, I've seen you have some deep knowledge about UNGM. We have applied for contracts since October, and we haven't received any substantial response from UNGM. We have registered on their portal, on their vendors portal. We keep updated about their contracts. We have been applying through their portal, but we haven't received a single response since October. And maybe for the contracts which have been cancelled, we have received a message, and maybe for some we have received a bid opening notice showing the companies that have applied for the contract. But we have reached a point of thinking that maybe we may never get a response from them. Even the timelines of some contracts have passed, but we are still on pending. What would you have to say about that, Patrick? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan, for that question. That is really practical. That is something you're working in. It's a real pain. And so Patrick will respond to that. So Patrick, take note of that question on no response from UNGM. How do you go about it, your own personal experience? Let's also take a question. There's a question here from Yoram Tuhamize. What are the requirements to do business, say, if supplies in other countries? Must you be registered in those countries? And so when you're talking about export, must you be registered in that country for you to be able to be eligible to supply or to export to that country? So I think you take that on as well. And then we have a question from Gloria Ninsima. She says, based on the intellectual property rights, especially about possession of crucial information that will actually help the natives of a particular country, how best can one bargain to have, for example, data also be kept by the country? I'm not sure. Gloria, do you want to ask this question so that we are very clear on what exactly you're asking? Because you're asking about intellectual property. How best can one bargain to have, for example, data also kept by the country? So are you saying that when you're doing a consultancy service, you as Gloria, a Ugandan, how best can you have that information, that data kept in Uganda, or are you talking about keeping it in the other country? So you may want to clarify, but Patrick, if you've understood that question, please take that as well. And then Hamza says, where do you start from building systems and structures? Where do you begin? Are there organizations training people about global business deal startup? My immediate question to that is yes, part of this session is actually preparing you for that. But again, let's have Patrick take those questions, and then we shall have another round of questions. So members, please put your questions in. But before that, I'll allow Geoffrey Mutabazi. Your hand is up. Please ask your question, and then after that question, Patrick will then be able to respond to the other questions that I read out from the chat. Thank you very much. Godfrey, please unmute and speak.
Thank you so much. This was a really good presentation. We're in the middle of international expansion, and this was really contextual. My name is Geoffrey Mutabazi. I run a startup that builds electric bicycles in Uganda. And one of the things we're doing is getting partners abroad to sell our products in new markets. When we are looking into new markets, one of the things we look at is cost of initial setup. For example, if you get business in North Africa, it's typically more expensive to fly to North Africa, to ship anything to North Africa and all of that. And if you get business within East Africa, I mean, a flight is $200, $300, maximum $400, and it's easier to also ship within the region. How do you look at that financial analysis when the deal is like, or the transaction is really still small? And do you also look into, okay, if we are to, what's the business development setup and project or business delivery cost versus the market opportunity and all of that? Do you have any framework you use? Because there are some deals where you could be actually spending more than you're going to make, or you could be spending more than you're making, but you don't know. And identifying that early enough, I think, is important, but maybe you could share some hacks and frameworks.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. Patrick, you've noted that question, and so I'm going to hand over to you. And so Geoffrey is also into international business, and which is good. And I think the issue of factoring in costs in your contract negotiation, I think. So he's asking for any frameworks that you may have to guide them, because yeah, sometimes indeed, I know that we've had clients come here, business people like yourselves, who have this contract and suddenly they come and they're looking for, where can we get quick financing because we are not making money in this contract. And so the question then is, when did you realize you're not making money in this contract? Was it before you signed it, or now in execution? So maybe there are some gaps, and so I want Patrick to speak into that. So Patrick, over to you, please take those questions, and then we'll have another round of questions.
Well, thank you very much for those questions. I'll start with Alan Mitanda, UNGM. Alan joined it in October, and he wants to stop. He has put in 10 bids. Alan, please, with any other, stick in. Some of these guys who do bid proposal rating, they say when you have a rate of 1 out of 10, you've done so well. Alan, your next bid would be the one that will give you that job. So please stick in. Working in there to share my story. I subscribed for UNGM in 2007. At one point, I was invited in Geneva to give a talk about exporting software in developing countries, from developing countries to other countries. And I was like, Alan, I said, let me go and meet these guys who are on the UNGM. They've been taking my money, $150 per year. And they've never responded to any of my emails. I have all their qualifications. And I was on stage and I talked about it. And they said, guys, keep on working. Alan, that COVID year, right, 2021, I received one of those UNGM emails. I applied. And guess what? We got a job in Fao, Malawi. Right after, I don't know how many we had done. Not underestimating, they could have been around 100. But what do I do when you make those applications and they don't respond? There's already a learning. At Data Care, we have a phrase. We say we don't lose bids, right? We either win or we learn. When I read that bid, I look at what do they want? What does the international market want? It's already preparing me for the next align. So prepare, keep in there, keep working, and you should be able to, you'll be able to get those wins. If you don't get it from UN, use that information to even be able to respond to other bids. So stay in there. The win rates can be really interesting. But also, if at times they respond and even tell you why you've not gone through. Some of them do, and when they do that, it also helps you to prepare. The second question was from Yoram on the country whether if you're supply, you have to be registered. You look at the terms. If you have to be registered, that means you're going to open offices in all the countries. Some of these countries, when you look at the bid or the requirement for this service, you don't have to be registered in. You're basically exporting a service. You meet their requirements, and then you're able to serve. But other countries are really specific. If you maybe want to open a company, you'll need to have a local and local content guidelines, and then you're able to register. So like we said, understand the operations, understand the laws and the regulation of that country before you go in. Nisima's question about data protection and we collect data and then it all goes and where it is stored. It's important for you to understand the framework. Like, for example, now if you're doing any work in Uganda, which is also in many countries, you have to store the data in the country, right? So whatever it is, that's why you see now there are a lot of data centers being created in the country, and then you say, you know what, this system, I'm going to collect the data, and the data will be stored in Uganda. Even if you're doing a study for an American company, please make sure that the data is stored locally, such that you're able to do all that, the personal data protection, and there's a whole institution now that is managing all this information. If, for example, you are to collect data about people in Uganda, there is a certificate indeed that you require to have. Geoffrey, wow, the whole issue of costing, and I think this is where I mean, if you're like an engineer, please make sure that on your team they are experts in finance, on all those modeling, your costing. Make sure you are in touch with the lawyers. Make sure there are people who are great on branding, such that you have a team that can give you all these frameworks, the financial analysis, to see whether the business you're doing is actually making money. Now, the challenge at times for us in the engineers and the others, at times we really love the job so much that you could even do it at a loss, right? So look at your numbers, make sure you are actually making money out of this. And the modules and the rest, I think with Enterprise Uganda and the rest, they should be able to support you. They've been running many of these programs on the frameworks to look at sustainability, how to handle your numbers, and that you should be able to get. Yeah, I think those are the ones. Okay, there was one, I didn't put the name, the person on systems and structures. So I think it's important for you to say, look, you are handling, say, electric bicycles. So there's a whole production end, there's a whole marketing, there's a finance, the operations, and the guys in charge of your export market, to know that if you're taking bicycles might be out of the East Africa, you know the cost. I mean, theoretically, it's so easy to draw a line to know the distance from Uganda to Morocco, but you dare to fly there, right? You see the all around trips before you reach a country that is that far. Yeah. So that's what I thought I would respond to, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Yes, I think you responded. You touched on all the questions. Hamza Changwa, I just want to add to your question. You asked, where do you start from building systems and structures? And I want to say you start here. You can come to Enterprise Uganda, because part of what we do is to train you to put in place business systems and structures. And it's after you have mastered the art of doing that while serving the local market that you then now aspire to go beyond. Because your next question is, are there organizations training people about global business deal startup? It starts with the local, and then you build your capacity, but also through networking. Someone like Patrick can actually handhold you, for instance, but again, you must reach out and be able to network and provide each other with value. So yeah, otherwise, there are many agencies you can also visit. We have Uganda Export Promotion Board. You have Uganda Investment Authority. You have even Private Sector Foundation and Enterprise Uganda. So any of these can be able to give you insights on how you can actually prepare to position yourself for global business. But it all starts with charity begins at home. Perfect your game at home, and then you can grow global. You can't reverse it. You can't start global and then hope to do business locally. Jackie Doreen says, gold nuggets. Thank you, Patrick. Again, I benefited from your organization services whilst at an institution I worked at a while back. Yet, having never met you, your team was consistent, available, and disciplined. Kudos to you. So, Patrick, that's a compliment to you for having a good team and actually doing what you are telling us here. A lot of appreciation from different members attending. And then Gloria again asks here, in instances where the work you are going to do is highly affected by the cultures within a particular community, how do you determine project extension? Because behavioral change is not predictable. So Patrick, you have a go at that question. Then Jora Shoes is advertising themselves, Jora Shoes. Mawanda Derek says, Dear Patrick, this is a great presentation. I run a consulting company, Continental Investments, in Vietnam. How do you handle unfriendly clauses when you want a deal? That's a good one. How do you handle unfriendly clauses when you want a deal or when you're dying for the deal? E.g., franchise that requires you to pre-finance, like life human medicine registration in Uganda. Yes, and so, yeah, you see a clause. So what do you do about it? Actually, related to that, Patrick, you mentioned, for instance, you mentioned that that I think in the clause, in the US, one of the USAID contracts you had, the clause that said that this contract depends on availability of funds from government. So let's assume that you picked this clause when you were signing, at the time you were signing. What could you have done differently? Would the contractor have been willing to change that clause? So how do you, related to this question that has just been asked by Derek, how do you handle unfriendly clauses when you actually want that deal? And then another question, have you had contracts in partnership with residents of other countries? I have had big trust challenges there. That's David Insug. I've had big trust challenges there. How do you identify good people and trustworthy people? So Patrick, I'll allow you answer those questions. A lot of compliments are in the chat room about your presentation. And so over to you, Patrick, and then we shall take another round. If there's a burning question, members, put up your hand and I'll pick you at the next round. Over to you, Patrick.
Wow, thank you very much. This is encouraging. I've got some more fuel for those who are giving those encouraging comments. We'll take on those. These three questions, basically on culture. I think like I said, it's important for us to study and understand the culture that we're heading into. And there's some culture you can't change, but as you're working, there are things you need to look at. Let me come back home. Uganda, we have a big challenge on timekeeping. And thank you for those of you who managed to really be on time. I should have spotted the first guys who logged in, right? And just imagine you have a contract and you've maybe not done your homework and you're coming to Uganda. You came in last weekend and maybe you have a contract for 10 days and you're here. I cannot tell you today the jam that's around and people that are leaving town today to go to upcountry for Easter is a challenge. Now, if you don't know that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right, are literally public holidays, then you will, as a consultant, you've not done it right? So understand the culture, understand the environment, and see how you adjust. Yes, some of this culture affects contract execution. So as you rate your contract, please see maybe you can do deliverable based, but not time based. I don't know whether I can I can frame that other than saying that, you know what, after every 5 days, I'm going to be delivering this, spread it through and say, well, this contract will take 4 months, and then you're able to deliver it. But even in that contract, it might not, if you can, I mean, you can and say, these are the responsibilities of the client. These are the responsibilities of the consultant, you, the vendor. And the third category is the possible risks. Actually, I should have put in a slide. Maybe I'll have to update the slides. There should be a component of risk checklist, right? In addition to these 3 stages of pre-contract, during the pre-checklist, then the contract part of it, and then the execution. We normally include the risks, right? What are the risks in that country? So we need to have those clauses and say, this contract, these are the risks, and if these are not addressed, they're going to be a challenge in the execution. In most of our work, when we're doing inception reports, even proposals, we highlight those risks. I mean, now we all know. I mean, I can tell you, I lost a job in Nairobi when we are supposed to present like today, and I'll state it unashamed. The government of Uganda switched off internet. And my Kenyan friend said, Patrick, we can't give you this job. You have no internet. So after that, we started, I mean, we lost the job anyway, right? But what am I saying is that during elections, right? Let's see, how do we manage if there is internet, if there is no internet, and you're doing e-services like this, what do we do? I mean, now we have prepared. We know next year there will be elections, and guys, by the way, internet will be on. But just in case it isn't, how are we prepared to address that? Now we know that and I didn't think about this last time. I know there were elections in the US. If I have business in the US, how do we handle that? Last time we got challenges, we had business in Nairobi, right? This time it was us trying to get to them and they couldn't get to us. So how do we handle those? They seem like cultural, but they are also political. They are all the things we need to have a clause for risk management. Unfriendly clauses. Yeah, my brother, I hear you on the unfriendly clauses. You know what? This might feel, let's not be desperate. The job that has just been terminated when we're just about to finish in the US, when we got that deal in 2020. And there was a clause that all the clients, all the information I get and the clients that we are serving, I should never do business with them for at least 3 years during this contract, during the 5 years. And I told them, you know what, guys, we are working with government of Uganda. I've done a lot of investment in understanding which projects will be coming in the country and in the whole of the digital transformation agenda for Uganda. So when you tell me that I can't work with 3 leading ministries in the country, I would rather leave this job. Until they had to go and change that, and they said, okay, it is that information that you get that is not available to the public, right? Such that you're not overcompeting the other guys. So you can talk about these clauses, and those that are not favorable, please make sure you address them. Now, if they are not favorable to you at the beginning, do you think they'll be favorable to you during execution? So I would kindly, you look at those and minimize the risks, if possible, get out of them. A huge one. Suvoga asked about identifying partners and the issue of trust. Wow, that's a huge one. Yes, we get partners in these countries, and we work with them. And initially we used to get challenges, and I can mention it here. We even used to get challenges when Data Care was as a startup, and then I run around, I come and meet one of you who's a good software developer, but is working with another company and another big ministry in government, and he says, Patrick, no, that I can do. These are classmates. These are big people I respect. But you know what? When it comes to the actual delivery, the guy is, he's up country, he's attending all these events. We have a presentation like this, his phone is off. And I realize it's an issue of trust is a big hindrance, especially for I don't want to stereotype it and say for Africans. No, but even out there, right? So you have to have a team, build a team that basically you should be able to allow me to build trust, to mentor and work with, right? And these people are available. They're available. And as you have these conversations, as you attend Airbnbs with them, go early before these events happen. Have dinner with them, have lunch with them. Eventually, you realize the kind of people you're dealing with, and you should be able to identify good people, consistent. Send emails, see their response time, make appointments. Do they keep them? And that way, you are able to build a network of people. Allow me to say who receive what you emit. How do you keep your appointments? How do you deliver? Are you a person who keeps your word? I mean, that way you be able to get people that you'll be able to work with. But people are people. Thank you. Over to you, Rosemary.
All right, thank you, Patrick. So related to that question, actually, David was saying another assignment we had was a consortium. But after winning, our partner said the contract price had been reduced and they eliminated us. Have you experienced that? How does one deal with that? And then we have a compliment from Paul Onek, who says, great presentation. He has worked under your leadership as the chairman of the Alliance for Trade in Information Technology and Services. I appreciate your experience and leadership and words of business wisdom. Lugalambi says, thank you, Patrick, for a good presentation and inspiring us to the global markets. And then Paul Onek asks, how do we understand and factor in tax implications in the target foreign countries in the contract? Issues of taxation, I think that's also very important. And then Elias says he runs a tour and travel company. It's called Home to Africa. A big percentage of his clientele are from foreign markets. However, for many years, clients request to pay through PayPal or Stripe. Unfortunately, these are not supported in Uganda. Do you have any idea or way out on how one can solve this for incoming payments? So you may want to share some tips with him. And then Sebunya says, what platforms do you use to source for global or Africa-wide contracts? Please share, and what the Africa startups need to stand a chance against the big consultancies, especially if the technical issue is not a challenge. So I think you respond to those questions, Patrick.
Wonderful.
Dixon has also shared in the group, actually. Dixon has shared UNGM platform on the group, so you can also pick that. Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
thank you very much. Maybe I'll ask Dixon. I don't know whether Dixon, you're in space to speak. I want you to help me on the PayPal and those incoming payments from elsewhere. I work with Dixon, and he's a great man from Hostelite. So I'll give him a moment to share that. It's okay. Partnerships where you have a consortium, and then once the guys get a contract, they write to you and they push you out. I've been blessed. None of the guys has pushed me out, but I've been in consortiums where we started as five consortium members, and all the others were pushed out except my Data Care and that mother company. And we did work with them for 10 years. Now, what is important is even in the consortium contracts, and I've learned this from one that I've just been writing, and it has been we couldn't submit because the bid was pulled off from the US government platform. And these guys indicate that when you're writing these consortiums, the client is aware. The client is aware that you are bringing value to that contract, and this is the piece. Now, you even indicate, you put in clauses like the contract amount I've applied for cannot change below 70%. If this happens, then these are the legal repercussions here and there. You involve the client, right? Such that you protect this partnership. You guys have you've won this job as a consortium, not as an individual. I mean, not as one company. So put in clauses in your what is it called in your agreement, right? When you're making that consortium, and this normally, if the contractor is a serious one, they will even require you to submit the consortium agreement. So these are in, and they have to be protected. If the contract has changed, you need to know. Now I know the lead organization normally protects themselves and say, you know what, it is only us as the leaders to talk to the main contractor, but you should be able to handle that. Paul Onek, thank you very much on the artist journey, and well, if I get a moment, I'll talk about artists, what we're basically trying to do. But what we've done, Paul, after burning our fingers badly on local taxes to where you're exporting, all our contracts now, we say our financial figures exclude local taxes. So if I've bidded in that way, and maybe I'm supplying to Kenya, I need to find out the rate now. And they say, you know what, if you're a consultant, they are going to charge you 16%. I will give them $100. Let them add their 16% and all the withholding tax, all the others. That is what they will be building on. That's how I've addressed them. Why do I do that? Soon we are reading the budget of Uganda. Rates will change. When they change, what happens? You are in the old regime of the contract, of the contract. So you should be able to manage that risk by saying my costs are exclusive of local tax. So any bill you mark it up. That's basically how I've been handling it, Paul. In terms of platforms, where we can get all these international markets, like I shared the UNGM experience, and Dixon has shared it on the chat. There are other platforms where you get all the deals of the World Bank. Hey, let's not forget about one very interesting platform, even the newspapers, right? But also a lot of work now is being advertised on LinkedIn. So quick searches on online, you should be able to get those platforms. But it could be another version that I could work with Mary, and I also include areas to check. But also now, before I overpromise, it depends on the area or the industry that you're serving. Yeah. Thank you, Mary.
Yes, so thank you so much, Patrick. Our time is quickly running out, but I would like to just one last question from Elias. He says, last year he won a deal from a multinational company. The agreement clearly highlighted it's against bribery and corruption, so they won the tender. However, along the way, the country manager based in Kenya asked to meet them, and the main agenda was asking for commission. So unfortunately, I declined the request as it was against our values, but unfortunately, we lost the deal along the way. What should I have done in this scenario? And I think that's very common, very common. It's a good question, and Patrick, please speak to that. That would be our last question, and then you can give us your parting thoughts before we close. But before that, I just want to tell members that we, as Enterprise Uganda, we run an entrepreneurship training workshop. And so the link is shared. Please sign up. If you're in business, you need to understand where you are. You may be wanting now to take on to export based on what Patrick has shared, that you're now prepared to go global. but you need to understand where you are, your baseline. So please, we offer you a complimentary business diagnostic or business health check. The link is shared, just register. And also, so we do business health checks for you. We can do entrepreneurship training. The link is also shared. And so just register on the link and we shall reach out to you and provide you with that service. But other than that, we're also available as Enterprise Uganda. You can walk in and you'll be attended to as we address some of the questions that may not be addressed because of time now. So over to you, Patrick, to take that last question and then share your last thoughts.
Elias, what should you have done? First of all, I want to congratulate you for taking your stand. And there's nothing you can do. If people don't want the job, they don't want you to do the work because of corruption, kindly surrender it. Kindly surrender it. There's nothing you can do. And I mean, I know people who know me here, and I know those who are listening, and those who say, they use a Luganda phrase, Kagenda, Tagenda. So that's basically how I do my business. I do it clean, because if you start on that note, your quality will be compromised. How will he supervise you? Secondly, if you do that, how will you supervise your people? What will you tell your finance person? That you be trusted, right? How will you handle the whole taxes? That means a single statement like that. That means you have to run it for very many years, forge the returns, handle the people internally. So run a trust system, run as a system of integrity. That's basically what we do, and we've seen the benefit. There are people who take away, and many of our contracts have been not contracts, bids. They've refused to shortlist us. They've refused to give us contracts because we don't give bribes. But guess what? We've seen some of those jobs come back after the other one who paid has failed to do the work, and they bring it to us. So keep it, and thank you for that. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much, Patrick. And I think that is a big one for everybody doing business. You know, each time you need a service or you need to get a job, there are those temptations, you know, the issue of commission and what. And what you say is very important. I think it all links to your personal values as an individual, you know. So I know Patrick very well as a man of integrity. And like he says, you will lose jobs in the short term, but in the long run, that character will be known and it will go before you. And also we know there are clients who want people of integrity. And so, you know, where you are not, your name will go before you. So it may be painful in the short term, but I think you just stand your ground and make it clear. I think that even in your bidding documents, you make it clear we don't tolerate corruption. And so it is known and it will pay off eventually. It may be painful initially, but yes, that is it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to, I think, bring this to a close to say, Patrick, you have shared such valuable insights. You've been very open and definitely made all of us better off in terms of understanding what it means to go for international business. And fortunately, we shall share that this has been recorded, so we shall share the link with everybody that has attended today. You will have Patrick's presentation that you can use. But like I said, please, his number is shared, so you can also reach him directly, send him an email or call him, and I'm sure he'll be willing to handhold you, to mentor you, because business is grown or developed through association, through networking. So use this opportunity if you have further questions to engage, especially people like, I think there was Alan, there was Geoffrey, who are clearly in the heart of this dealing with such international business. I encourage you to reach out. And so allow me, so Patrick, there have been a lot of compliments here, good presentation, and like I said, we'll share the recording, which I will share the presentation with all those. Our links are on there. If you want to sign up for the ETW, the link is right in the chat room. Please go sign up. We also have for the complimentary. This is a free business health check. Many of you have been running business and you don't know the state of your business. You know, if I use the analogy of a body, you don't know how healthy or sick you are. So you need to go to a doctor to do an annual checkup. So come to Enterprise Uganda for a free business health check that will help you to understand where you are, where your challenges are, where your weaknesses are. And then based on that, you're able then to begin to strategize and move forward. as you position your business for international growth. With that, I'd like to thank you so much, Patrick, for sparing this time. I know you're in Fort Portal, but you still were very committed and accepted to deliver. We thank God for the good internet that we didn't lose you many times when you're out of town. Internet is very unreliable. And for every member that joined on today, I want to say thank you so much for choosing to spend your first 2 hours of the day very well. These 2 hours, the knowledge you've acquired is not in vain. I'm sure you're going to go with a tip, a key takeaway that you'll apply in your business. So have a good time until we meet next Thursday again with a very, very interesting topic that will help drive your business further. So as moderator, I'm Rosemary Mutiable, and it has been a pleasure to be with you this morning. I work as Director, Partnership and Ecosystem Development at Enterprise Uganda. Have a blessed day, ladies and gentlemen. I'd now like to bring this to a close. And again, Patrick, thank you so much. Feel free to leave.